Hello, and welcome to tonight's episode of Mass Hysteria. Tonight we're going to be listening to some clips from Adam Curtis's documentary, The Century of the South, as well as some music by Bagua, Negra Intro, Solar, Mellow, Solar Flower, Kukan Dublagan, Titan, Silo Romano, Mr. Sun Scenic Route by Milou, Green Haze, Crank the Brank, Dilo, the Juicy Bits with Shocking Attack Cucumbers, live version, and Overlure with Transistor Love. So, without further ado, let's get started.
Like attention deficit disorder.
It's a basic fear of that thing inside me, like a little demon in there. It doesn't come out very often.
Like attention
It's
deficit
really hard to
disorder.
get it out.
Like attention deficit disorder. Like attention
Now
deficit.
put the thing inside
Like attention deficit
on the
disorder.
chair.
Like attention deficit.
Girls used to call this getting on the hot seat in front of a group. If this were the hot seat and you were Pearls, and you would guide me into this process of self-enactment, self-revelation, of staying present to all parts of yourself and noticing it, and then taking ownership of this.
As the demon. Yes, I can come out. I can come right out of him. And I can push him aside.
You say you
I can push you aside.
You're the demon with each one of us.
I can make you all cry. I can make you all feel terrible. Maybe even forever. I can make this mouth here, do things and say things. I can almost destroy anyone, each one of you, if I get out. There isn't one of you that I would spare. Not even you.
How do you feel?
I feel better. I feel very honest.
And you notice the increase of power.
In other words, taking ownership of who you are and how you act and how you feel. Your whole being in the world. In other words, giving you autonomy, owning your freedom.
Solar.
Now, where do you feel your power? In your hands, in your muscles, rhythm.
Wake up! I want to do everything. Damn you!
Okay. Stop it.
You. It was not phony movement. That's what I wanted to do. I did it.
I have my power. I am frightening.
See, I frighten you with my power.
I frighten you with my power.
What Pearls and others working at Esalen believed was that they were creating ways that allowed individuals to express their true inner selves.
I want them to applaud for me.
Out of this, they believed, would come new autonomous beings free of social conditioning. To the left, defeated in the wake of Chicago, it was an enormously attractive idea. These techniques could be used to unleash a new, powerful self strong enough to overthrow the old order.
I have no idea what percentage of my tax dollars go to welfare, but even if it's a minuscule percentage, even if it's a quarter of a percent, it's still too much for the people that are receiving these benefits that are basically non-productive.
But the American state fought back violently. At the Democratic Convention in Chicago in 1968, the police and the National Guard were unleashed to attack thousands of demonstrators. It was the start of a phase of ruthless repression of the New Left in America. It culminated in the killing of 4 students at Kent State University 18 months later. In the face of this, the left began to fall apart.
We had met the force of the state. It was much bigger and stronger and more powerful than we realized. And at that point, what seemed to happen was that there was a change in tactics.
Confronted by this violent repression, many in the New Left began to turn to a new idea. If it was impossible to get the policeman out of one's head by overthrowing the state, instead one should find a way of getting inside one's own mind and removing the controls implanted there by the state and the corporations. Out of this would come a new self, and thus a new society.
People who had been politically active were persuaded that if they could change themselves and be healthy individuals, and if a movement grew up just aimed at people changing themselves, then at some point all that positive change going on, well, you could say quantity would become quality, and there would be a sort of a spontaneous transformation of society. But political activism was not required.
It's about making a new you, that if enough people changed the way they were, that the society would change.
So the personal became political?
Yes, the personal became political. Without changing the personal, you didn't stand a chance of changing the political. Coming up against the state power of the United States was not an option. I mean, they outgunned us. Advertising was manipulation. It was a way to get you to do something that didn't come out of you. It came out of somebody else. Somebody else said, this year you should be wearing powder pink shirts with matching powder pink buck shoes. And I said, why? That's not who I am. That's who somebody else is. They wanted you to be somebody who would buy their stuff. This whole feeling of being somebody else's tool. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be somebody else's man. I want to be me.
If it was impossible to get the policeman out of one's head by overthrowing the state, instead one should find a way of getting inside one's own mind and removing the controls implanted there by the state and the corporations. Out of this would come a new self, and thus a new society. And Bernays believed that this meant it was too dangerous to let the masses ever have control over their own lives. And consumerism was a way of giving people the illusion of control, while allowing a responsible elite to continue managing society.
It's about making a new you, that if enough people changed the way they were, that the society would change.
So the personal became political?
Yes, the personal became political. Without changing the personal, you didn't stand a chance of changing the political. Coming up against the state power of the United States was not an option. I mean, they outgunned us.
Stage 1. financial collapse, faith in business as usual is lost. The future is no longer assumed to resemble the past in any way that allows risk to be assessed and financial assets to be guaranteed. Financial institutions become insolvent, savings are wiped out, and access to capital is lost.
Stage 2.
Commercial collapse. Faith that the market shall provide is lost. Money is devalued and/or becomes scarce. Commodities are hoarded. Import and retail chains break down, and widespread shortages of survival necessities become the norm.
I feel so liberated.
Really? It's fantastic.
Stage 3.
Political collapse. Faith that the government will take care of you is lost. As official attempts to mitigate widespread loss of access to commercial sources of survival necessities fail to make a difference, the political establishment loses legitimacy and relevance.
Stage 4.
Social collapse. Faith that your people will take care of you is lost, as local social institutions, be they charities or other groups that rush in to fill the power vacuum, run out of resources, or fail through internal conflict.
I do.
Think about it, dear American people out there.
I think it's funny.
You're all brainwashed, kiddies.
Cultural collapse. Faith in the goodness of humanity is lost. People lose their capacity for kindness, generosity, consideration, affection, honesty, hospitality, compassion, charity.
That's the whole joke.
That's a quote from Turnbull, the mountain people. Families disband and compete as individuals for scarce resources. The new motto becomes, may you die today so that I die tomorrow.
I think it's
That's
funny.
from Solzhenitsyn, the Gulag Archipelago.
That's the whole
There
joke.
may even be some cannibalism. And
I mean, it was bound to be
You say,
class,
when I
wasn't
shave every
there?
morning, I look in that mirror, I say to myself, I really say this, I say, nobody is going to ruin this day for you, Wayne Dyer. Nobody. You take this day and you say, when I shave every morning, I look in that mirror, I say to myself, I really say this, I say, nobody is going to ruin this day for you, Wayne Dyer. Nobody.
Stealing oranges and taking Cokes out of the refrigerator and crazy.
It helped me to stop living in the past and start building from today and using my experiences in a positive way to be a better person today and tomorrow.
Don't settle for anything less than you can be. Make your life a masterpiece. Don't settle for anything less than you can be. Make your life a masterpiece.
You know, how this bar of soap or this bag of flour will make you a happier, more successful, more sexually appealing, less fearful person.
Millions of people began to use the checklists to monitor and diagnose themselves. They used them to identify what was aberrant or abnormal in their behavior and feelings. But by definition, this also set up a powerful model for them of what were the normal behavior and feelings to which they should aspire. And psychiatrists began to find more and more people coming to them, demanding to be made normal.
It's out of experience like ours that the new world will be built.
There is despair, Mr. President, in the faces that you don't see. Maybe, Mr. President, if you stopped in at a shelter in Chicago and spoke to the homeless there. Maybe, Mr. President, if you asked a woman who had been denied the help she needed to feed her children because you said you needed the money for a tax break for a millionaire or for a missile we couldn't afford to use.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed effort to convert retreat into advance.
So the human potential movement turned to another social group who they believed would benefit from personal transformation. nuns, and this time they were more successful. The Convent of the Immaculate Heart in Los Angeles is one of the largest seminaries in America. A group of radical psychotherapists approached the convent.
It was bound to be.
They wanted to try out
class,
techniques for personal liberation on individuals whose identities were defined by a series of external rules which they had deeply internalized. The convent, anxious to appear modern, agreed to the experiment.
And we did weekend encounter workshops for several hundred Immaculate Heart nuns. Nuns who were reserved, and they tended to be more reserved than other normal people, were told, don't be so reserved, let it all out. You're a good person. You can afford to be who you really are. You don't need to play the role of a nun. You don't need to keep downcast eyes. Prudence is an oversold virtue.
You're trying to assert yourself, trying to find out who you are, who you're becoming. At the same time, you're trying to live a life of dedication, of service, and you're trying to make all these things fit into who you are, and you're just, it's such a turmoil at times that you just blow a gasket and do silly, crazy things. Running around the orchard and stealing oranges and taking Cokes out of the refrigerator and crazy things.
I felt like I was being a hypocrite, and I wanted people to respect me for what I was, not for what I was wearing. And so I'm glad for the change.
You feel frightened, but you'll go on.
Oh yeah, I'm scared to death, but it's worth it.
The experiment began to transform the convent. The nuns voted to discard their habits in favor of ordinary clothes. But the psychotherapists found they had awoken other forces.
Solid.
One of the things we unleashed was sexual energy, the kind of thing that the church had been very good at restraining.
My father thought that you should liberate the libido and have freedom. And he developed the theory rather early that neuroses were due to lack of good orgasm, or any orgasm.
Was no longer to be restrained. One sister who was a member of the community, she got the idea that she could be freer than she had been before, and she seduced one of her classmates and then seduced the mistress of novices, who was an older woman, very reserved, and her program of freeing this older woman was sexual. She drove her to the store, and when they drove back and drove into the garage, she leaned over and gave her a big kiss on the lips, and thereafter sister, who had perhaps never been kissed before, was ready for more.
They had become radical lesbians. The experiment on the convent was cataclysmic. Within a year, 300 nuns, more than half the convent, petitioned the Vatican to be released from their vows. And 6 months later, the convent closed its doors. All that was left was a small group of nuns, but they had become radical lesbian nuns. The rest gave up the religious life.
They did, yeah, they became persons.
Trying to understand how people feel about brands, how they relate to brands, that is to say, what the brand's personality is.
Invent yourself. You can be what you want to be.
I want you to start to make that sound, and on that sound, create and people the world the way you want to create it.
This new system of psychological disorders had been created by an attack on the arrogance of this new system of psychiatric elite in the name of freedom. But what was beginning to emerge from this was a new form of control. The disorders and checklists were becoming a powerful and objective guide to what were the correct and appropriate feelings in an age of individualism and emotion. But this was a very different system of order. No longer were people told how to behave by an elite. Instead, they now used the checklist to monitor their feelings and police their own behavior. For the first time, anyone had gone out and asked ordinary people how they thought. For the first time, the results, when processed by the computers, were astonishing. For the first time, more than 50% of Americans suffered from some type of mental disorder.
These studies revealed very high rates of mental disorder. There are very, very high rates of disorders out there. Half the population has a mental disorder at some point. 17% of the population has a depressive episode at some point. Figures like that. These rates astonish people. They're enormous rates.
To develop techniques to read the inner desires of individuals and then fulfill them with products.
Depression looks like. This is what ADHD
Think about it, dear American people out there.
This is what
you're all
brainwashed, whether they exist in any particular way, or they
there is a
exist in the
policeman
same
inside
way,
all our
or
heads
if they are the same
who must be
kinds of
destroyed.
things, didn't matter. This is just what they are.
The computer would then decide whether people were normal or abnormal.
This person's really angry, and they're going to let it. No! No! I'm kidding.
They had become radical lesbians.
Really? It's fantastic.
Depression looks like. This is what ADHD looks like. This is what PTSD looks like. This is what multiple personality looks like. Whether they exist in any particular way, or they exist in the same way, or if they are the same kinds of things, didn't matter.
They now use the checklist to monitor their feelings and police their own behavior.
Don't settle for anything less than you can do. Make your life a masterpiece.
Depression looks like. This is what ADHD looks like. This is what PTSD looks like. This is what multiple personality looks like. Whether they exist in any particular way, or they exist in the same way, or if they are the same kinds of things, didn't matter. This is just what they look like.
But if one steps back and looks at what has resulted, it is a very strange kind of thing. The attempt to liberate people from the dead hand of bureaucracy has led to the rise of a new and increasingly controlling system of management, driven by targets and numbers.
It's out of experience like ours that the new world will be built.
Some socialists seem to believe that people should be numbers in a state computer. We believe they should be individuals. We're all unequal. No one, thank heavens, is quite like anyone else, however much the socialists may pretend otherwise. And we believe that everyone has the right to be unequal. But to us, every human being is equally important. A man's right to work as he will, to spend what he earns, to own property, to have the state as servant and not as master, they are the essence of a free economy. And on that freedom, all our other freedoms depend.
We're here for your fucking freedom! Back up right now!
It was just a matter of asking people a couple of questions, checking the boxes in the diagnostic formula and say, there you are, you have this disease, or I have this disorder, I better go to my doctor and tell him what I need. And it was an amazing experience and a great change. Most people do not, previously at any rate, want to see themselves as in some way psychiatrically injured. But now they tell me that they have an ideal in their mind about what the normal person is. I don't fit that model. I want you to, I want polish me down so that I fit. Polish me down so that I fit.
Because an entrepreneur had invented a way of mass-producing this new independent self. He was called Werner Erhard.
Some of the stuff that we traditionally think of as being in your mind is actually in the world, because you're moving to that too.
Erhard had invented a system called EST, Erhard Seminar Training. Hundreds of people came for weekend sessions to be taught how to be themselves. And EST was soon copied by other groups, like exegesis in Britain. Many of Erhard's techniques came from the human potential movement, but he criticized the movement for not having gone far enough. Their idea that there was a central core inside all human beings was, he said, just another limitation on human freedom. In reality, there was no fixed self, which meant that you could be anything that you wanted to be.
The thesis of the human potential was that there was something really good down there. And if you took these layers, what you were going to wind up with was a kernel, a something innately self-expressive. That was the true self that was going to be a wonderful thing. In actuality, we found that people had gone to the last layer and took off the last layer and found that what was left was nothing.
The EST sessions were intense and often brutal. The participants signed contracts agreeing not to leave and to allow the trainers to do anything they thought necessary to break down their socially constructed identities.
Sandwich in there.
Intense and
If I
often
push harder
brutal.
than you do, I'm going to squash you. So you better push fast. Now, hard, do it. That's it, do it. Get push. Good. Good. Again. Yes.
The real point of the EST training was to go down through layer after layer after layer after layer until you got to the last layer and peeled it off, where the recognition was that it's really all meaningless and empty. Now, that's existentialism's endpoint. S went a step further in that people began to recognize that it was not only meaningless and empty, but it was empty and meaningless that it was empty and meaningless. And in that, there's an enormous freedom. All the constrictions, all of the rules you've placed on yourself are gone. And what you're left with is nothing. And nothing is an extraordinarily powerful place to stand, because it is only from nothing that you can create. And from this nothing, people were able to invent a life, allowing them to create themselves.
What he told the corporations was that these new beings were consumers, that they no longer wanted anything that would place them within the narrow strata of American society. Instead, what they wanted were products that would express their individuality, their difference in a conformist world, the very things that US corporations did not make.
Products have always had an emotional meaning. What was new was individuality. The idea that this product expresses me, and whether it was a small European car, the particular music system, your presentation of self, your clothing.
For immediate energy from our muscles and
these become ways in which people can expend their money in order to say to the world who they are. But the manufacturers, they have no idea.
Major advertising companies set up what they call their operating groups to try and work out how to appeal to these new individuals. The head of one agency sent a memo to all staff. We must conform to the new non-conformers. We must listen to the music of Bobby Dylan and go to the theatre. But the problem was, few of the self-expressive individuals would take part in focus groups. The advertisers were left to their own devices.
There's a new cereal that tastes so right. Makes you dance, gets away out of sight. Tasty little squares of bone. It's crispy and it's crunchy and it tastes so neat. Faster. That's what I'm saying. Use the folk rock and the more rock.
And there was an even more serious problem. To make products that people who wanted to express themselves would mean creating variety. Systems of mass production that had been developed in America were only profitable if they made large numbers of the same objects.
so democracy is reduced from something which assumes an active citizenry to something which now increasingly is predicated on the idea of the public as passive consumers, the public as people who essentially what you're delivering them are doggy treats.
All right, and we do have one more song coming up here. We're going to finish off the evening with Acid Gurkha with Manhattan.
Did y'all know this chick that lives out in California, and she lives in a swimming pool with a great big old tent over it, and mothers look crazy. Well, sure you ain't coming around? I didn't see pictures. Yeah, there's some pictures of me out there.
They say in business, what gets measured gets done. They say in business, what gets measured gets done. They say in business, what gets measured gets done.
They had become radical lesbian. They had become radical lesbian. They had become radical lesbian. They had become radical lesbian.
It was, in a sense, a triumph of the self. It was a triumph of a sense of indulgence, a view that everything in the world, and all moral values, was particularly viewed with the light of Christianity. Indeed, the ultimate ending there was only a bunch of individual people making individual choices to promote their own individual ideas.
There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed. There is a policeman inside all our heads. He must be destroyed.
And that wraps up our show for tonight. Have a good one.